Morning, people.
Morning.
And welcome to Horror in the East. This is the first panel of the day. It's aptly titled Doomsday and Armageddon Had a Baby, and It's Ugly. So on the table we have David Moody, Adam Baker, Sean Page, Adam Millard, and Simon Coleby. So, gentlemen, there seems to be an ever-increasing fascination with the end of the world, with which you're all obviously a part of in various forms. Why do you think this is? Why have we got this fascination still?
It's not ever increasing, is it? I think it's there all the time. I keep referring to a quote that I heard this year, but I didn't write down the quote stupidly. I wish I knew it. But I was on a panel at an event last March with a chap called Hugh Howey, who wrote Wall. I don't know if you know him. He's done amazingly well, but this panel was also about Armageddon, because there is a fascination, obviously. And he started off with a quote, and it was basically somebody saying, "Oh, we're all doomed. The world's going to end. We haven't got long. Shit's hitting the fan. We're in real trouble." And it was actually that's not literal what it said, but it was actually 5,000 years old. So the point is, I think we've always had this fascination, and you just adapt it to the times. Because right now, I feel personally that we're right on the edge. But I don't know.
Isn't the word Armageddon? It's biblical in origin, is it? Was it Megiddo?
Yeah.
So I mean, it goes back to biblical theology, doesn't it? A lot of that is based on the end of times, and it's always been with us. It's always been part of our sort of culture or mindset, I suppose.
Isn't it possibly throughout history, every generation, 2 generations, we're thinking about on the brink again?
Yeah, it's always been there. But as you say, I think we possibly are. Things like fossil fuels running out. It's quite a real prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, population explosion, which is just maybe explosion is the wrong word, but population growth. It's a sum that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to come to a point very soon when there's not enough for everybody.
Do you think the Mad Max movies helped it along as well? Because you look at that and you thought, well, that actually looks quite good.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah,
I've always
driving around
motorbike.
Yeah, well, you'd be perfect when you're 3-wheelers.
Yeah, and no helmet. Perfect.
I wouldn't have been in my other square if I sat next to you in my vehicle. You'd be really cool.
Yeah. It's weird that you mentioned Mad Max though, because a lot of the apocalyptic books I've been writing recently, I always seem to have a line of dialogue where 2 characters are talking about the end of the world, and they always mention the Road Warrior, because it is
he's
archetypal, apocalyptic scenario.
But I suppose it's something like Mad Max, like you say, it makes it look kind of cool, and see all
I was going to say, that is quite an appealing end of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because sort of everybody hankers for getting rid of the rules.
Dropping snakes on people from flying things.
Helicopter. Yeah.
I'll be doing that.
As opposed to say Waterworld, which would just be rubbish. That'd just be a shit way to end it.
Yeah. Interesting though, it's part of the fascination, isn't it? The fact that it does have an appeal to it. I remember watching an episode of Survivors. Remember Survivors, the BBC drama? And the scene was just 2 characters walking across a field, and it was absolute quiet, and all they could hear was a stream, and there were no buses, no cars, no planes, no other people. And I was thinking, yes, please.
Probably Wales, David.
That is the appeal of the original Dawn of the Dead, though, I think. Of all the zombie films, that one stands out, and it's the only one in which the characters actually have fun.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah. Being locked away in a mall with everything you possibly want, including zombies ultimately. Well, regarding the end of the world, Sean, you recently spent 5 nights in a bunker, didn't you? So you've had a bit more of a taste of actually what it's like than the rest of us.
We talk about. For those you don't know, I spent 5 nights sealed in a nuclear bunker. It's a big nuclear bunker. I was sealed in there alone for 5 or 6 days. And it did change my perspective on it. And I said we did it as a sort of a bit of a stunt, and I thought it would be a bit of a laugh and stuff, but it actually worked out much tougher than I thought. And so I spent hours and hours just wandering around this atomic weapon place.
He wasn't completely alone though. You had mannequins.
I had friends.
Was it Shirley?
I made some. I did have I found an AK-47 down there, and I kept it about my person for security reasons. And it was called Shirley. But it's only because I was by myself. I didn't have any friends down there. But there were lots of mannequins as well. So if you don't like mannequins, I just found it easier giving them names.
It's all about the isolation.
I quite liked it actually. But it did. Joking aside, it did I know it was only an exercise, I know it was only 5 or 6 days, but as the days go on, it's amazing how real it all got down there, because they've still got all the Cold War kit down there. Some of you might know the bunker in Essex, and it's just, I couldn't really write anything, couldn't really read that much down there.
But how would you have felt if there had been nothing up top?
Yeah, I don't think. I remember in I Am Legend when he's playing the film clips, because I found myself like wanted to play something in the background, just some sort of music. But I think if you were down there by yourself with no hope of coming, because obviously I knew I was coming out, well that was the plan anyway. But I don't know. The psychological pressure would be incredible. Because also you've got nothing to do, so I had to make a routine. I realised I recreated a job for myself because I had literally nothing to do. I was just patrolling the bunker endlessly.
It's a pretty unnerving place anyway, isn't it? We went there, we were on a summer holiday, and we ended up there, because it's bizarrely, the bunker is opposite the school where my wife used to go when she was young, and because that was back in the 80s when it was properly fully functional, and she had no idea it was there. She went to school for years over the road from this huge nuclear bunker and just had absolutely no idea.
This is Kelton
Yeah, it's like 3 floors. It's huge. Yeah, it's built for 400 people, so you're not claustrophobic, but you're under lights all the time and you don't realise not seeing daylight and not seeing anybody. Yeah, and they've done a few supernatural sort of investigations and paranormal stuff down there, but it's just like a massive empty bunker. They've got loads of computers everywhere and stuff, but yeah, it's worth a visit. But it is quite an eerie place if you're easily spooked.
And you walk around as a visitor, and they've got Protect and Survive, the old nuclear film, showing on old televisions and video players, and it is genuinely unsettling.
Yeah, that's what I found about it.
So should the end of the world come, you all write about it, or in Simon's case draw this, are you prepared? Do you have bug-out bags? Are you ready to go?
I do. Well, we literally started preparing, and see, I don't really prep, but we literally started. There was with the solar flares and things. Basically, not for the end of the world, the zombies and whatever. But if you've seen the way this country collapses when the petrol prices go up or whatever, it's all gone. Everything, you find out. Slight changes will affect the shelves in the shops and whatever. So we literally started buying tins and tins. We now have a shed full of food.
And the chickens, of course.
And the chickens, we've got the chickens as well.
Bit of self-sufficiency.
But yeah, we started prepping, but not because we're anticipating, Armageddon as, a shed full of food ain't going to do well if there's a 6 mile wide asteroid going to land on it.
It might if you felt the roof.
Felt the roof. I didn't think of that. But yeah, so as far as prepping go, I think it's good to have a little bit in reserve. Bug-out bags, 72 hours, but and always sort of keep weapons. I'm a big fan of that. You're a fan of the cricket bat.
I am, yeah. I tried to get the AK-47 out of the bunker, they wouldn't let me take it. So yeah, I've got cricket bats. But we're the same as you. We do I wonder if it's good when you're writing stuff, but we also do the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just basic food. And it's more common in America, isn't it? Like everybody does it in America.
Huge.
But here you're called a bit of a weirdo if you have a secret.
The survivalist thing was big in the States, wasn't it?
Yeah.
People in the middle of nowhere with their shelters and.
Yeah, I like them because some of them are really on the fringe as well of going lunatic as well. So
Yeah.
heavily armed, living the
There's a fine line.
A lot of them are sort of the other side of the fringe, aren't they? The Alex Jones crowd.
Yeah.
I find myself doing the same thing. I've got sort of flashy powered lamps. Because in Cheltenham we had a weird situation where in 2007 it started raining, and it just kept raining. And I was stuck in an office, and most of the people in the office were stuck there over the weekend. They couldn't get out, and I had to wade waist deep in water to get home. And they shut off the water to Gloucestershire because the pumping station got inundated. And so you had the military taking over the race course, and we had army trucks in supermarket car parks distributing bottled water, with police keeping guard, making sure everyone got their allocation. And in the local Tesco's you had police at the checkouts because people were panic buying bread and tins and stuff. That's just got to happen to you once, and suddenly prepping doesn't seem very silly anymore.
Better in Cheltenham than Essex or somewhere like that as well. That would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. But another thing they did was put water houses on street corners, and you suddenly start getting very prickly. People were supposed to take only 2 or 3 gallon drums, and you see people like hauling massive water containers to drain them. And as long as everyone plays fair, it's fine. But the moment people start breaking the rules, everyone gets snappy.
Did you start dealing with people breaking the rules?
Well, it was looking weird because the other crisis we had was outside Gloucestershire is the big electrical substation, and that was about 6 inches of waterway flooding, and that would have taken out the power for the county. And at that stage, you're talking about evacuating hospitals and basically the police telling people to evacuate the county and leave their houses empty. And then you've got the sort of looting situation. Do I stay and guard the house? Send the family to safety in a different county and then just stay and make sure my house is okay.
Or do a bit of looting yourself? But
yeah.
You look like you're tempted.
Well, on the way home, that with all the flooded streets, you walk past shops that are just empty, and the doors are open, and they're sort of knee deep in water, and you could have waited in, filled your pockets if you like.
I think obviously, with the fantastic side of the end of the world, zombies, viruses, etc., it's more likely to come from something like there was a program on I think it was Channel 4 recently, a drama called Blackout, and that showed very quickly how society will break down. So how long would you give us before we're killing each other?
12 hours. Literally, my Virgin Media went down a couple of weeks back. I was just screwed. That was about 6 hours in.
And Adam will start before it goes down.
You just cause it, won't you?
Yeah, it was like the whole boiler explosion of 2010. It was just terrible. It just completely ruined Christmas. 6 hours.
Killing spree on
6 hours Virgin Media gone. I was just like, I was digging holes in the garden, literally was. But no, I reckon, in all seriousness, 48 hours people would start getting twitchy, especially if you can't hear from anybody or the powers that be. You'd be like, somebody's got to tell us something somehow. And if you're not sort of in the loop, I think that's the kind of thing that would send you over.
We were talking to somebody about the petrol strikes earlier a couple of years ago, and you saw it the petrol strikes, and that was pretty much like 48 hours, whatever. People were going mental at the petrol station within, and it was just borderline bubbling under the sea. Some of you 6 to 12 hours max.
It is scary, isn't it? We're all hardwired to look after ourselves at the end of the day. So when it does hit the fan, it's inevitable that it's going to spiral downwards.
It depends what you get. I mean, if it's an instant cataclysm, then there probably would be chaos. But if you have more of a slow collapse, like in Russia, they had a currency collapse, and they have the same in Argentina. It depends what kind of community you're in, whether you've got people who will help you out. In the case of Russia, obviously the currency just evaporates, and then you're left. Your survival mechanism is people who will do you favours, who will trade you stuff for turnips and whatever.
Just
well, if you've got to eat.
I wonder at what point you actually decide that this is it. Something I've often thought about. When do you think we're not going back from this?
Yeah, it'd be
It
terrible.
depends on the circumstances, doesn't it?
Mm.
I mean, in that slow kind of collapse, you're going to have enough time to realise you're not coming back from it. In the economic collapse,
As a pessimist, I think we are in the slow collapse.
well, we are, arguably.
Absolutely right.
And it would be awkward if you were running through like London in a loincloth and the lights all come back on. just be.
That's just like a dream I've had.
It's a dream. It's like a dream I had about you.
It's awful but interesting.
Wasn't it?
I'm working on that at the moment. Just imagine getting so far down the line that everything has gone, and to have it switch back,
come
again.
back on.
How do you react from that? Could we get back?
I think it's worse.
What if lawlessness is completely broken open?
The scenario I got is that there's kind of EMP thing which knocks everything out ages and ages, so we regress really quickly, I think, from that. But then imagine later on down the line that everything comes back on. So I guess there'd be people trying to get back to how it was. There'd be other people who are perfectly happy hitting others around the head with a club. It's just obviously it's never going to be the same again. Would we ever get back to something like the normality we've got now? Normality now. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
I think that's quite an interesting point, actually, because we've had numerous books and films about the end of the world, but to actually go literally to the end of it, and then for it all to come back.
But it's
I've
true.
copyrighted that one.
Yeah.
Sean's alright, I can hear him. I can hear him.
New stuff.
Stop it.
Need some new shit.
It happens in regions, doesn't it? It's like when the New Orleans, hurricane. It's a lot of the people, the landowners, saw it as an opportunity to reclaim land. You had a lot of very poor ghettos were levelled, and the instinct is, well, that, okay, we'll try and build, shopping malls on top of that and exploit it.
Would you necessarily want to come back to exactly the way things are now? You might learn something from it, new skills, survival skills.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's why people like it, isn't it? It's a chance. I think there's more people, if you've lost a job or if you're not particularly well off, you think, well, it's a chance to recast.
That's
isn't
it.
We
I
joke
think
about Mad
we're all
Max.
back
Yeah.
to, the same. There'd be no sort of hierarchy.
Yeah.
Well, we'd all be just base humans again and start from scratch. And I think that's the appealing. No credit card bills. That's
Yeah.
all
No, I
gone.
agree. I think that is the appeal of it.
Yeah, just all your debt just wiped out,
Yeah.
and then we're all just eating each other.
That's
I
what I mean.
was with you till the end there. Credit card
I'm
bills.
trying
Yeah.
to
I suppose in reality, it's only the last, say, 100 years or so we've had the electricity, the phone, the internet, etc., and all this communication. So I guess it would kind of go back to what we had.
Well, that is the
Wasn't
thing
it?
you were saying earlier about the preoccupation with Doomsday. If you go back to the birth of the novel, Daniel Defoe is one of the first sort of people actually wrote. And his book, Robinson Crusoe, Journal of a Plague Year, The Great Storm, which was another one. Throughout human existence, survival has been the central thing people wrote about, and it's only this really pampered period in the 20th century that survival becomes an ism. That if you're a prepper, it's something weird like learning ukulele. Whereas most people around the world, just preparing for what nature's going to throw at you is standard day-to-day stuff.
I think pampered is a great word to use. I think we are probably less prepared than ever now. And I've got to be careful now, so you two just shut your ears for a minute, because I'm going to talk about one of your sisters. A few years ago, one of our daughters had a car. She got a car and a sat-nav, and she went somewhere, and something went wrong. The satellite link was lost or whatever, GPS wasn't working. And she came back hours later, and we said, well, what did you do? Did you get a road atlas? Did you look at the signpost? And she said, no, I just kept driving around till it came back on. And that's just the way that her mind was working. That wasn't anything wrong to her. Just keep relying on it, and if it doesn't work, just wait till I get it back. So I think now so much thinking is done on behalf of people that when we've actually got to do it for ourselves, I think there'll be some pretty scary situations coming up.
Well, not necessarily ourselves teaching our children. Because I know my kids didn't know what a record was.
Yeah, we've got wood fire class tomorrow, okay? We're in a shelter on Monday.
6 a.m. start.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the pamper thing I think is right, because today the answer, I think, look it up on
Google
Wikipedia.
it.
If something that's not there, do you know where to get food? Do you know where to get water? Do you know where to go to be safe? Things that we've kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
Although, those of us you who write about it and think about this more probably have a slight head start.
But that's the scary thing. We've kind of forgotten, but there are people who never learn. There's a big gap there, I think. Guys, it's miserable, isn't it?
Lighten up the end of the world.
Tell us about cricket bats again, Sean. Come on.
I'm not allowed to talk about cricket bats anymore.
So, lining it slightly then, obviously you guys write about this, but Simon, you draw this. So how does your approach is different to the rest of these guys?
No, it's not that different. It's just imagining the scenario and what would happen in the environment. So architecture would how long would buildings stand before they start to decay? Just think about the practicalities. What would you wear? Could you get new clothes? So you just build the environment from that, I suppose. But it depends on the scenario, obviously. In the sort of slow Mad Max decay, it's going to be a little bit different to the comet that hits the asteroid or whatever. So it's approaching it the same way, I think. Just think about the practicalities of it, and then obviously these guys write about it, I'll draw it. So, boring answer, but sorry.
I was just thinking about the practicalities, Mad Max, End of the World and all that. Who makes these fantastic clothes? Are there still tailors?
Washes them. Not going to get out.
It just got to stink, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's what I liked about.
Smell it all the time.
If you look at Book of Eli, I think you can practically smell their clothes. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think worked about Book of Eli, and the fact that there was no Kindle fires. Right, like they actually wanted this physical book as opposed to
Good film.
yeah.
I suppose one final thing then, end of the world sort of films. I mean, there's Threads, which is very reality based, which I think we're all familiar with, and we're all scarred by.
Threads.
And the recent one David brought to our attention, The Divide, which I thought was an interesting thought, particularly with Sean having spent the time in the bunker, how quickly people will turn on each other. So, favourite end of the world films?
Well, you said mine, Threads. I just don't think there's no equal to it. It's the most terrifying 90 minutes of film ever made. In fact, it still amazes me that it was a BBC drama and that it was shown in the middle of the video nasties era, because I watched it a couple of years back and it scared the crap out of me still, and it's very visceral, it's very real, and it's just phenomenal.
It's because up to then they'd said you could get under like a door, because in the bunker they had a few sort of shelters, and they said, you can shelter under a door or hide in a cupboard and you'll be alright. But then when you see Threads and it follows what happens afterwards.
If you
The
think
thing
about
is that a lot of those public information films were about avoiding the actual blast, the impact, but it's the bit afterwards which is
Yeah.
People are
terrifying.
busy with that.
Yeah, not as much fun as I was led to believe.
Probably not.
But going on from that, I think When the Wind Blows is an incredible
Yeah.
book and film,
Yeah.
because that takes that to an extreme, doesn't it? They do it exactly by the book, exactly what the government says,
That's
and
right.
they don't think for a second that they're going to be fake.
No.
And, well, tragic, heartbreaking.
Land of the Dead's got a few more laughs with Romero. That's quite good, because they're sort of sheltered in a city and rebuilt a society. It's not brilliant for everybody, but some people, Dennis Hopper, have done really well.
Yeah,
Quite
Dennis
like.
Hopper's done really
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
He did
We
really
all
well.
like him, don't we? That's my favourite one.
Land of the Dead.
Yeah, Land of the Dead, yeah.
Not Survival of the Dead.
No, I don't know that one.
Don't say that. You can't mention the title of that film.
You were one of the people dissing Romero, weren't you, online?
No, I didn't diss Romero.
But he deserved it this week, didn't
He
he?
did deserve it this week.
After making Land, Diary and Survival of the Dead, to then criticise The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
I think is a bit out of line.
It's a bit rich.
Are we all Walking Dead fans?
I'm a Walking Dead fan.
Well, I
am.
Yeah.
To be fair, the series have been a varying sort of. One was good, two was okay. This one seems to be picking up. So
That hasn't got a lot of laughs in it, though, is it? That is quite...
it's kind of serious.
I just thought there'd be some funny side to it. And I just
Yeah, there's no-
only
there's
killed
no-
the pigs. I thought, bloody hell, that's not very funny.
that was not funny at all.
Especially for the pigs.
Yeah, I was shocked at that bit.
It's funny, isn't it, though, about animals and things like this. I Am Legend, diabolical film, fantastic book. But when Will Smith's dog died,
Yeah.
I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
It didn't, yeah.
Yeah. That's
My own dog I'd happily get rid of in a second, but Will Smith's dog.
Any questions from the floor?
If there was some sort of apocalypse, I mean, the scariest one I can think of at the moment is one from Conrad Williams' book, One, the gamma ray burst, I think it was. Would you prefer to, I'd rather die than really survive in that, I mean, to be a survivor of that. Would you, in that scenario, would you like...
I haven't actually read the
It's
book.
a-
What happens with the...
Pardon?
What happens? I haven't read
It's
it.
a gamma ray burst, and basically it fries the Earth's surface. And the main character only survives because he's a deep sea welder to a certain depth. When he comes back up, like I know David knows it now.
It's
ruined.
an
It's just
incredible book
totally-
actually. But I think one of the things that makes it such a good book is because when he comes back up and he goes outside for the first time, the world is so utterly destroyed and
Yeah.
utterly bizarre. And you've got to say, in those circumstances, no thanks. But
But
there's
there's a lot of sightseeing, though, couldn't you? I mean, nobody around, and do what you want.
yeah, but you're talking about like the soles of your feet burning when
Everything's
you're
frazzled,
It's
man,
pretty
yeah.
grim.
Especially because halfway through the book it jumps 10 years down the line, and it's really good, but it's absolutely hellish.
Yeah.
And the side effect of the gamma ray burst was there was like these some spores managed to like impregnate dead flesh, and this sort of alien creature called Skinners. Like, they sort of live within dead bodies and use them as like shells and they actually skin people. And
Yeah, probably should have stayed in the water by the sounds of that. It's pretty
You're not selling me the idea.
No.
It is an amazing book. It's just written so well.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful to read. But anything,
One of
it's
my
pretty bleak, yeah.
One of my pet gripes in sort of end of the world stories is nobody accounts for nuclear power stations that would all immediately melt down. So whatever scenario you have, it's basically a radioactive wasteland.
I mean, a lot of them got a shutdown anyway.
Well, they do. They got backups, but they're not supposed to last indefinitely.
Isn't it? I saw some program about that sort of thing, and it was the nuclear waste plants, were the ones that would melt down, apparently, and would turn half of us into wasteland.
doesn't matter where it comes from, we're buggered. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Might get some interesting mutations though, Adam.
Well, but
Over time.
they had sort of
Plus side.
in Pripyat near Chernobyl, they had
Yeah.
some plants that were getting gigantism, huge leaves.
But wildlife's thriving around there, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't turned out quite as bad as they thought it would.
Oh, on that cheery note, I think
Enjoy the rest of your day.
thanks to David, Adam, Sean, Adam, and Simon. And we'll be back.